So this is our blog, you already know, right? So Parmala, I'm not sure you're so aware of this. I
Yes, sir.
think, yeah. So this is the API testing and rest assured. So this under pages, you can find that a complete API testing related here.
Okay.
So under pages, okay, the right hand side, you have a pages section. You can find API automation testing with rest assured. So first we need to understand, so what is the APIs? APIs are nothing but application programming interface, and which is going to communicate with the different systems. It is basically, you don't need internet also, and so open source will be there, and also paid ones also, their APIs. So the example is open source, you can use Selenium APIs. Every Selenium method is an API. You don't need to pay for that to use all the methods. You can just, without internet also, you can work on that. Just, include in your project, and you can use all the APIs. So basically, it is going to communicate with different systems. But before that, we need to understand what is a client and server. So I hope you all know this. So a server is a connection point for several clients. This is the server. The server is going to connect with different clients. Clients is nothing but who is sending the, right? Who is sending the, so request, the request will go to server. So basically the server will handle all the requests which is coming from the clients. So client is another software that usually connects to the server to perform actions. The client provide a user interface, that means UI. You have a UI. So users to carry out their actions on the UI, and that will talk to the server at every action. Okay, so then, so this is the any web application structure. You have a presentation layer, application layer, data layer. So normal UI testing you will do on this presentation layer, but this API testing can be done on this business layer. This is called application layer or business layer or business logic layer. So the API testing is performed in the application layer. So, and the data layer. So these two layers you will target in the API testing. That's why this is becoming very popular nowadays. Even that means this part, even without presentation layer, that means without a UI, you can test your applications. You can test your microservices. So that's the advantage with the API. So that nowadays, everybody developing the microservice. So before, monolithic applications was there. Monolithic application is nothing but the entire thing. So your servers, your web server, application server, data layer, everything in one area only. So now what is happening, the way when the size of the application grows and the performance issues are coming up, and also there are a lot of problems. What are the problems are there? If one area, if you change, you need to deploy and you have to test everything. We don't know where it is going to break. So that is the problem with the monolithic applications. From monolithic to people are migrating to microservices. Microservice means every service they're making as an independent unit, a workable software product, and that will, so each microservice will go and talk to each other by APIs. That's why APIs are becoming very popular nowadays. So every service, like you have a booking service, you have a payment service, you have a right order service, like different services you can develop, and you can give a connection. You can talk to each service by these APIs. So it's very lightweight and also very faster. So that is the reason people are helping with the APIs, the connection between the two services. And easy. So tomorrow what will happen if you develop microservices? It is independent. So even if you make change in the microservice 1, microservice 2, microservice 3, you have 3 microservices. So you made a change in the microservice 2. You don't need to touch microservice 1 and microservice 2. It's not going to impact anything. So you will test only microservice 2 one. So that's the advantage. Also for the testing point, for the deployment point, everything is easy. So maintenance is very easy and easy to deploy, easy to test, and also that you can communicate, and so making the product very easy to code, deploy, and test it nicely in a shorter time period. So that's advantage, and that's why APIs are very important nowadays in the any IT application development. So what is API? So as I mentioned, it's an application programming interface. It enables communication and data exchange between two separate systems. It will go and interact with the two separate systems. So as I mentioned, microservice 1, microservice 2, or microservice and microservice 3 you want to communicate, you can set up that the communication with this API concept. So basically, so the examples for this APIs are Google Maps API, Amazon Advertising API, Twitter API, YouTube API. You have so many APIs. Okay, you have so many APIs. So all these APIs, is going to help you. Okay, is going to help you to do your purpose. It will serve your purpose. So without EUI also, you can go and find out your data. You can create your data. You can search your data. You can get your data. You can update your data. So whatever you want, you can do. You can delete your data. So all these operations you can do with the APIs. The CRUD operations, we call that. CRUD. C for create, R for read, U for update, D for delete. So these CRUD operations mostly will perform using these APIs, right? Like you take, you want to create an account. So there is a method for creating an account. So post method is there. So if you want to read or you want to access any application or you want to get the data, there is a get method. And you will give the URL and everything. So which info you want to get it. For getting the info or reading the info, you are going to use a get method. These are called HTTP verb methods. HTTP verb methods. For retrieving the data from the server, you will use a get method. And to create the data, you want to post the data. So you will use post method. And you want to, you have a record already. You have a resource in the server already. That data you want to modify. Then you will use a put method. So U for update. In the put, you have a PUT, right? U, put for update. So if put also can be used for posting also. For example, the resource is not present in the server. You can post it with the put method. But post method only creates, that's it. So it cannot be updated. So if you want to update, you have to use a put method. Delete method. So you have a resource already in the server. You want to delete that. So you can use a delete method. So delete method to do that. Okay. So these are the 4 APIs, API HTTP verb methods. Get, post, put, delete. So any questions on this area? HTTP verb methods. And so we are going to discuss in detail again. So you are using API when paying for a new clothes online with a credit card. The e-commerce platform sends you to your bank's website to confirm the card data and then write back. See, you cannot develop again in the e-commerce website your bank software. So that's another system. This another entire different application. How you are communicating? So through APIs. you write a API functions. That function will go on top to that with a overloading concept you can give. So you can tell, okay, this method has to pay with a credit card, pay with payment with a credit card, payment with a net banking, payment with a debit card, payment with a different wallets. So this all, see, payment is a common thing here, but you are doing different ways. So that's a overloading concept. We can use it. So that overloading concept people will use, and they will do this payment option. So that's all the APIs. These are real examples you're using currently. That's all this is happening in the back end. Okay, so behind it is happening. The API is doing the actions. So that's the this API's advantage. And web service. What is a web service? So this is another interview question. What is the difference between API and web service? So web service is nothing but it's another software system designed to support interoperability, machine-to-machine interaction over the network. So over the network, so if you want to do interaction between two different systems, a machine-to-machine interaction or so interoperability, you will use a web service concept. So we have two types of web services. We'll discuss that. So before that, let's discuss on this, the important interview question. This one is, what is the difference between web service and API? So all web services are APIs, but all APIs are not web services. So web service uses only three styles of use: SOAP, REST, and XML RPC for communication. API may use any style for communication. So web services are self-contained. APIs are open source and can be used anywhere. It can only be hosted on IaaS. It can be hosted within the application or IaaS. Right? IaaS means, this is the abbreviation, Internet Information Service. That's where the posting of your application. So web service might not perform all operations that API performs, but API can perform all the tasks that web services can do. So it requires SOAP protocol to receive and send data over the network. So it's not a lightweight, but so API is a lightweight architecture and good for devices which is having a limited bandwidth, like mobile devices. So that is the APIs and this one. So web services needs a network for its operation. API doesn't need network for its operation. So that's the main difference between web service and API. So what is API testing? So API testing, basically you can do on the business layer. See that? This is the presentation layer, means the Selenium UI testing or a functional testing, you will do manual testing here in this presentation layer. But the business layer or application layer, the API testing works here. And then the database. These two, mainly this business layer, middle layer. Here the APIs will execute, because mainly you're touching the application code, you're testing that. So that's the API testing, how we will do. So what are the advantages of API testing? So what type of API testing? So there is a functional testing you can do, reliability testing, performance testing, security testing also you can do with APIs. See, API is very quicker. For example, you want to create an account. So you in the UI, it will take a lot of time, right? It will take a lot of time. But same thing you can do with the API in a fraction of seconds. You can create an account in a fraction of seconds. That's the advantage. That's why people prefer these APIs. How do you find? Even in the network tab also you can find. For example, this is the page, right? So right click, inspect. Even you can find, go to network tab and you just refresh this page and you can see here network tab calls. These are the APIs, the XHR calls. So XHR calls, you can see, just click on any one of them, okay? So you're going to see here, request URL. This is the request URL. And the which method, get method, status code 200. So then you want to see payload, you can see the payload and preview and response. You can see the response also. This is the response, you can see that, right? So this is the, even your UI is going to use this APIs also. So for example, you are performing a search. See, now you will get a search related. Okay, let me select one at least. So you should get here the search. So you go to headers and you can do that. So you did a product search. This is the question mark, whatever is there. This is the query parameters. This is the URL after. This is the base URL. Ramesh QE online live loves to blog.com is the base URL. Base URL after something, then question mark will be there. Then the one parameter, that's a query parameter. So this equal to after whatever this is your parameter value. The parameter is root. So that you can see here, the question mark, ampersand, these are all the query parameters. That means you are searching. The query parameters are for searching purpose. You can use with the question mark. And this is the endpoint URLs automatically it will set up. So that so APIs will be interacted here. So what are the advantages of API testing? So API testing provides access to the application without user interface. We are discussing already this point. API testing usually takes a less time and than functional UI testing. And API test automation requires less code, so it can provide better and faster test coverage compared to Selenium UI testing or any UI testing, not Selenium, but any UI test case. So this is the faster and better coverage it is going to give you. Instead of spending a lot of time on the Selenium UI, and the API testing will really help you quicker. So even if you can see the Google, and if you open a network tab, and you can find out. So here you just refresh it. So you'll get a get call. See? So this is a get call. It is fetching the data. So entire data. So this is the get call. So you're just loading the page is nothing but a getting. You're getting the page for you. So that's the get calls. So all this you can find out, even network tab calls also you can find out which is what. See, loading, logo is loaded. So like this, you can just find out the google.com is the base URL. Base URL after whatever is there, this is the question mark RT. So for example, you are searching something. So I'm searching. So this is my query parameter I'm going to do. Right? You can see here, search after query, that is your query parameter. So this is the query. You can see search question mark Q Selenium. That's a query. The query parameter is Q and the value is Selenium. So then you will get a payload, you can see, response, you can see, this is the response you can see. So you can see the response in the JSON body. So this is the how the entire data, all the results will show here. All the results will be shown here. Okay. So that's the, even in the UI, also you can gather the requirement, this APIs, and you can see the payload. So any questions till now?
No, it's good, sir. Thank you.
So API testing, data is exchanged using XML or JSON format. XML, tags, right? Tags based. And JSON is a key value pair in the curly brackets inside. So if you see this, so this is the one key value pair from this is the key and this is the value. So proper JSON I'll show you so that you can get a better idea. Okay. Otherwise, it's a difficult for you also.
Sir, if they ask like how do we debug web API?
This is the one. This is the one. You go to network tab, open the network tab, okay. And so look for the which API you want to. You can see the 200 status code or something, right? You can see here the status codes. Okay.
Okay.
So which status code it is? 200 means it's successful. 400 or 500 something means so there's server side and client side errors. I'll tell you that all the status codes. Okay.
Okay.
Based on these status codes, you can debug and look for and tell this all these points. Your valid question, that one. Okay. So look for the status code. Anything which is not 200, there is some 500 error is there. That's a problem. And then select that API and come to know your headers and see the request headers, response headers, everything, and go to payload. What payload you have given, you tell that. Okay. And preview and what is the response it is giving. This is how you need to tell all these tabs. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, that's your question answer. So open the network tab, developer tools, go to network tab and see the status code, then select which API, and you can find out a headers section. You can find the request URL, the method, the status code, and then what payload you have given, and response, what is the response. So that's cool for us, right? You don't need to again go to Postman and all this. This is the web UI you can debug.
So
So-
if they ask like, how do you debug web application? It's
Web
the-
application debug means this one from network tab only.
Okay.
From network tab only, the web application APIs, the calls you can debug. So maybe sometimes what will happen? There's a link for every page in the UI that is appearing and with this API. If API fails, the UI doesn't work. Okay.
Okay.
So if UI page is showing blank or something not working, you go and check in the network tab. So which API that is throwing error. That's the indication, and take this a screenshot and send it to them.
Okay. So what's
That's
this
a
payload?
debugging.
What is the purpose of this payload, sir? Headers payload is there,
Payload
right?
means what you are giving,
Okay.
Input, your
Oh.
input data. So for a post call or get call, you will give a data, right?
Yeah.
The
Okay.
post call only will give data. Now get call, you won't give any data. So if you see here, so here they have taken get call, but generally for post call, you will give the data, right? So that's but they're sending through, even the get call, they're sending through a query parameter. But if there is a form filling, all those, there is a post method where you want to fill the data. That's a post method. But here is just retrieving data, right? That's why they're sending through query parameters.
Okay.
But I'll show you that post methods and all this. What is the body for post? And for get method, you won't have a request body. Okay.
Okay.
This your question answer is you have to tell this.
Okay.
Open network tab calls, check for which API is throwing other than 200, and then look for payload and response, and you can use that. That's the answer you have to give. Are you clear?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So, and also is so basically this JSON is so language independent. Okay, so for any language it will work. So that's mainly people will use JSON only mostly. That's the advantages of API testing. And what are the difference between API testing and unit testing? API testing is conducted by creative. Unit testing is conducted by development team. API testing is a black box testing. Unit testing is a white box testing. So this is basically API testing is performed to assess the full functionality of the system on the business layer. So it will be completely going to test complete functionality on the business layer. So unit testing is for the developers, whatever the functions they are writing, that functions they will test it, whether it is working or not. That's their unit testing. And API testing, so you run after the build is ready and others do not have access to source code. You don't have access to source code. You just test the APIs either in Postman or in, network tab calls. You can do that, but testing can be done. You have to use some Postman for manually if you want to test them. So unit testing, the developers has the source code access, and guess they are the developers. They have developed the code, they have written the code, they have their access. So that's a difference. So what are the features of a web service? As I mentioned, interoperability, reuse already developed functionality into the new software, because you don't need to develop them again and again. You can just plug into, you can just use that software into your new application. So loosely coupled extensibility. These are the features of web services. So we are two types of web services, SOAP and RESTful web services. SOAP web services, we're not going to teach, but I'll just give you a brief idea what is SOAP, but SOAP is not popular nowadays. So only people are using RESTful web services only. A SOAP is a simple object access protocol. So it basically exchanges the information using request and response in XML format only over different transfer protocols like HTTP and SMTP protocols. So this is how you will send. Okay, so there is a client and a provider, service provider. So we are see, even client is a consumer also, we can call that consumer or service provider. So always your request will go to service provider. Always your request will go to service provider. And then the process will happen. The data you will send in the XML format using these tags, and you will get the response in the XML format only. Request goes in the XML format. Response also you'll get in the XML format only. That's a SOAP, web services testing. There are different components in the SOAP. One is the simple access object protocol, WSDL. WSDL is a main web service description language, and UD, so universal description, discovery and integration. And main entire development, entire functionality developed in the WSDL URL. So in this WSDL URL, the SOAP, what it has to do is developed here only. So it is an XML file that describes the technical details like how to implement a web service, what specifications the URI is going to do, what is the port, what is the method name, what arguments you need to pass, what data types. All this will be included in this WSDL file. That is an XML file. So the implementation, everything will be in this WSDL file. They will very clearly tell us. So which port, which endpoint URL of the web service, what is the input message format you need to give, what is the output message you need to get. So security protocols that, so which one you need to use, which protocol the web service uses, everything will be mentioned in this WSDL file. Once this WSDL file is ready, so there is a UD concept will come into picture. So UD is basically, it will register every SOAP request. That registration purpose, you will use UD concept. So a web service provider can register themselves with a UD and make themselves available through it for discovery. Okay, so then SOAP testing tools. There are SOAP testing tools like SOAP UI, UFT, JMeter you can use for testing the SOAP web services. And that is not much important for us. We can focus mostly on the RESTful web services. So RESTful web services, everybody uses a REST APIs. That's why we need to discuss the RESTful web services. RESTful web services is representational state transfer, which provides a communication between different servers or client and server. So, and that will be interacted with a HTTP request, that is get, post, put, delete, as I mentioned already initially. But again, I'm going to give more in-depth knowledge about this get, post, put, delete. Okay.
Sir, so SOAP is not using this CURD operations?
Yeah, you can use. There also they will develop same. The
Okay.
function again same you will do. Any web services, they're going to do CRUD operations.
Okay, sir.
Okay. So not only the rest will you, but this one is easy, lightweight, very quicker and faster. But that then SOAP means you need to understand your XML structure. You need to understand. You have to prepare that. A bit difficult. Okay.
Okay, so who will
You have to
create
use the
this
tool only.
file?
You have to use the tool.
Okay, who will be responsible to create that WSDL file?
Just a minute, I'm getting some. Yes, can you come back? Can you ask question again?
Who will create that WSDL file, sir? In
That's a
SOAP?
developer, right? Developer.
Okay. Okay.
So that's the main implementation, right? Your WSDL file implementation, developer has to do that. Our task is as a tester, once they develop that SOAP web service, then you will test them in these tools. Either you will use SOAP UI, EFT, and JMeter. Here you will give your WSDL URL you are going to give in these tools. Then
Okay.
it will test and no, you will test it. Okay, once the development is done only, it will happen.
Okay.
Then WSDL file, everything is ready, then you can test it. Otherwise, it's not possible. Okay. So even REST APIs also, they have to develop the API methods first. Like, create payment or create user. That's a one method name they will develop. Get information. Then one method they will develop. But internally, they will use a get call there while writing the code. The developer will write the code for that. So the format, how you need to send, everything they will develop. Once they develop, you will give your data and you will test it. So the output is coming properly or not, that while testing. Okay. Now let's go and understand this API format, what format is there, and how you are going to give. Okay, so this first, let's understand this. What is the difference between SOAP and RESTful web services? So this is the XML based message protocol. This is the architectural style protocol, REST. SOAP uses a WSDL to communicate between consumer and provider, that means client and provider. Okay, so REST uses either XML, JSON, HTML, text, different formats it uses. That's another advantage with REST, to send and receive data. Any format you can send and you can get the data back with a REST. So SOAP calls RPC method to invoke services. REST calls services via URL path. And SOAP result is not human readable, because who knows XML, then only people can understand. REST is in readable format because it's an XML and JSON format, or other plain text format, also image format, also whatever the format you want, you can get it. SOAP transfers over HTTP and other protocols such as SMTP and FTP, and REST transfers over HTTP only. SOAP, JavaScript can call SOAP, however, it is difficult to implement it. So REST can call from JavaScript. Nowadays, it's a very popular JavaScript, right? Any browsers uses JavaScript. So SOAP performance is minimal as compared to REST, and performance-wise, REST is much faster. No, so that's why people use REST only. So in the REST architecture, so while developing, so you are going to use the format like this. The HTTP method request structure will be like this. Your HTTP verb method, then URL, and then so the URI you will give, and the version, headers, request body, then you will get the response body. This is the complete structure of any REST APIs. So, and here client is sending a request to the server and you'll get a response back. So here, if you see here, and this is the endpoint URL, and this is the method. So request API method and the parameters. So the parameters you are giving @ photo ID, unique. This is the resource ID, this one. So that means in this server, with this resource ID number, there is a photo. So that will get it for you. That's the request URLs, how you will send it. See that REST endpoint URL plus API methods. So this format you will send. If there are parameters, without parameters also you can send your request. So let's go and deep dive about the structure again. See, this is the protocol, HTTP or HTTPS protocol. And this one is the base URL, your server URL. And then this is your resource in this server. So that's why you're separating your server inside the resource. And you send a request, you can get back the response. So request verb plus URL. So the verb is HTTP verb methods, that is get, post, put, delete. These are the first you have to select the verb method, then URL. URL is HTTPS base URL / your resource URL. So you have to give that. So with the request method and parameters, you can give in this URL. Okay. So which REST constraint essentially prohibits the use of cookies? Stateless. These are some of the definitions. What is URI? So URI is nothing but uniform resource identifier. So it is a sequence of characters that identify the web resource by location or by name or both of the location name in the World Wide Web, like W3. So how you will recognize your resource? So in the internet, you have so much information, right? How you will identify that resource, particular resource? So that has a name and that has an ID, that has a location. Based on that, you will recognize that. That recognition you will give in the URI. That's the URI means. It is a method that allows for the uniform identification of the resources. That's a URI means. An example, this is the URI. So you will give this ID. That some ID will be there. So telephone number. This is the resource, your identification you are doing. So mail to, this is the one. News, so this is the one. So what is URL means? URL is a uniform resource locator, is a sequence of characters that identifies the network location of a resource. That's a URL. So these are the URLs means you will give like this, right? These are the URLs. These are the URLs. So URI inside you have a URLs, and that is the how you can identify the URI resource and URL for resource locator. So resource identifier, that is a URI. A resource locator is the URL. So URI is the superset of URL, and URL is a type of URI, one of the type of URI. So it is often utilized in XML and tag library files such as JSTL and XSLT. Often used to find web pages with these URLs. So URI is a primary purpose is to identify the resource and differentiate from other resources either by using location, name, or both. So it is a primary goal is to get the address or location of the resource. So this schema can be anything from protocol to designation or specification. Here, the schema is a protocol like HTTP, FTP, and LDAP or HTTPS. So then what is a resource? Basically, a resource is a physical component. So which is available in the internet, right? Where it comes to that. So take another example of Google. Now append /maps. Okay, /maps. So in last of base URL, https google.com/maps. So you will give like this, right? So Google will launch Google Maps. Try same with the /news. Google will launch Google News. Here maps and news are actually resources which has its names and locator. That's the resources means. Okay, so URL, and then you're giving a resource names to identify that. So you're identifying with a maps resource with a map name, maps/maps. So you're identifying a news with a /news resource. So that's the resources URLs and URI difference. And these methods, let's go and discuss one more time. Get method is reading the data, retrieving the data from the server. So it is an idempotent method. Idempotent means how many times you request, the state doesn't change. So you get call, you are getting data from the server. You call a number of times the get call. The state of that resource doesn't change. That's a get call. Put method. So put method also just use it for updating the resource. If the resource is not there in the server, it will create that resource. Put method will even create also, even update also. If resource is available, it will update. You have to tell which data you want to update of that resource. Like you just take any of your account information you have given wrong and you want to update it now. So you call only put method. You want to, your first time you're creating an account, then that will be a post call. They're posting that. So put also an idempotent, because how many times you update same parameter of that resource, it will update the same thing. It won't change the status. Delete method. It removes the resources. The operations are independent. This is the idempotent. It will remove. Once you remove, again, if you call also, you will get a 404 not found, because it's not there, right? 404 not found will be taken care. So the post one is not idempotent. Why? So post is always going to post with a new ID. It is going to change. So that's why post is not idempotent, but other three are idempotent methods. I have given here what is meant by idempotent. So multiple successful requests will not change the state of resource after initial application. That's the idempotent. So delete is a idempotent method, because when you first time you use delete, it will delete the resource. But after that, all other requests will have no result because resource is already deleted. So like deleting any file, deleting photos from account, that's an example for a delete method. Put method. So updating address, changing name, renaming files, all this will call put method. Get method is checking a news and searching anything on the web. That just now we have seen, right? The get call they have used for the Google, just loading the page or searching the anything. The post method, so basically it is going to create the resource, create the resource in the server, like uploading a file, uploading a picture, sending the tweet, submitting a form. All these are post method. You're posting. So post is not idempotent. So if you retry the request n times, you will end up having n resources with the n different resources it will create in the server. Okay, that is the get, post, put, delete. So this is the one how you will get understanding the RESTful URLs series. So post URL /API/inventory item. So what this create inventory item command. Result creates a new inventory item. This method will create, because post get API inventory item. The same, but no, you are not going to give a body here. So there is no body here. This is the direct output. It will return all items, all the inventory items. It will return for get. Put, see API inventory item / curly bracket inside ID. So this is called path parameter. You are adding the parameter in the URL, in the request URL. This is called path parameters. So you are renaming the particular ID. That's with the put method. So delete method, you are giving a particular ID to delete. So this item will be deleted with this input ID you are giving. Post API inventory item, so ID even removes items, a number of items from the stock. Maybe this is the not a, so post is always going to create. I think this is wrong something. Okay. So this is another one, adds a number of items to the stock. This ID, it will be added to the inventory. So get, it will get the particular ID, this ID details only you will get it with the get call. So that's the different REST URL and their methods. So what is the difference between path parameters and query parameters? These are very important.
I need to go to the work,
Oh, is it?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Fine. Tomorrow we'll meet at 6 o'clock itself then.
What is 6 o'clock?